Hello Raptors fans, and welcome to Raptors Report. Today we're going to be talking about the remaining games in the regular season, the transcendent play of Pascal Siakam, as well as really drilling down on the seeding that will determine who makes and who misses the playoffs. So let's jump in. The Raptors, like most teams in the middle of the pack, have had some really high highs and some big disappointments. The Raptors blew a game that they had won against the Lakers recently, off a Russell Westbrook game-tying three. They lost a complete stinker to the Chicago Bulls on the second night of a back-to-back. Injuries to Fred VanVleet, Gary Trent Jr., OG Anunoby, and Malachi Flynn have been big stumbling blocks that would be a good excuse for any team to roll over and die, but like a cockroach or Rasputin or perhaps even a tardigrade, the Raptors have been very difficult to kill. The Raptors went on the usually arduous West Coast road trip and won out, defeating the Phoenix Suns, the Denver Nuggets, and a scrappy Clippers team, among others. Scotty Barnes has been phenomenal. Pascal Siakam is putting together an all-NBA quality season. Precious Achiuwa has emerged as a 3-and-D center, and Chris Boucher has been a force off the bench. Following the overtime Lakers loss, they went into Philadelphia and took a game off the new-look Sixers before getting stomped by the Bulls. So it's been up and down, but the Raptors are over 500 and are definitely in the hunt for the final real playoff spot, which is the 6th seed. With 10 games left in the season, the Raptors have the 10th easiest remaining schedule. The teams ahead of them in the race for the 6th spot, the Bulls and the Cavs, have more difficult schedules, with the Bulls having the 7th hardest schedule and the Cavs having the 16th hardest. The teams behind them are Brooklyn, Charlotte, and Atlanta. Brooklyn and Atlanta both have cream puff schedules, with the Nets having the 9th easiest remaining schedule and Atlanta having the 2nd easiest. The Hornets have been backsliding in the second half of the season after a great start, and their luck doesn't appear to be changing as they are facing the 11th most difficult remaining schedule in the NBA. While remaining strength of schedule is a nice tool, it's not as amazing a predictor of the final outcome as you might expect, as the remaining schedule for most teams is only about plus or minus 5% of 50%, meaning that if you take the combined records of all of the teams that your team has to face, it's going to be pretty close to 500. What this means is that it's likely that any given team will continue its current trajectory. Bad teams are going to lose more often, and good teams are going to win more often. This is all a fancy way of saying that the Raptors will have a decent chance of making the actual playoffs. The unfortunate losses to the Chicago Bulls as well as the Cleveland Cavaliers has put the Raptors behind the 8 ball, but there's still plenty of runway left to steal a spot from one of those two teams. Up next, we'll be looking at the fantastic play of Pascal Siakam. I mentioned the inconsistency of the Raptors this season. The injuries, the blown opportunities, the amazing victories. It's been an up and down year. One thing that hasn't been inconsistent is the play of Raptors star Pascal Siakam, who, despite not making the All-Star game this year, has been one of the very best players in the whole NBA since returning from shoulder surgery in November. His ability to attack the basket, finish through contact, shoot the basketball, defend multiple positions, and run the break have been phenomenal. But the most impressive characteristic has been Siakam's incredible playmaking. Siakam has 33 games this season where he's had more than 5 assists, and 4 games where he's been in double digits in that category. Siakam is nearly unguardable in single coverage, as his array of slashes, clockwise and counterclockwise spins, layups, floaters, and jump shots make him an incredibly difficult cover. As a result, teams have begun to load up on him, sending multiple defenders to try and prevent him from getting to the basket. His ability to read defenses and his very high processing ability means that he's excellent at finding players that have been left open. Cutters, corner shooters, guys in the dunker spot. He recognizes where they are and he finds them with good accuracy. The only kind of weakness in Siakam's game is his shooting, but even there he's made strides, converting on 35% of his 3 attempts per game, certainly enough to force teams to cover him beyond the arc. On defense, he's also a big difference maker. Siakam guards the perimeter well with his quick feet, allowing him to switch onto guards in the pick and roll. But he's also a great rim protector who uses his length, height, and athleticism to bother players inside. He is simply one of the most complete players in the league, and in my opinion, the main reason why the Raptors are even in the conversation for the playoffs. Siakam is also a good reason why you should lend credence to statistical evidence and precedent. Early in the season when Siakam returned, there were many forum threads, tweets, and even comments in the comment section of these videos that suggested Siakam was overrated, that he didn't help the team win, that he was holding back other players on the roster, etc. These people pointed to the record of the team, which suffered when Siakam returned to the lineup. It's often difficult for people to understand cause and effect. If a player plays very well in a losing effort, people will often discount the production that player gave. The team lost 5 straight games when Siakam returned to the lineup. While he was obviously shaking off some of the rust from his surgery and a lack of training camp, people were quick to point to the team's record with Siakam on the court and blame him. Despite myself and others pointing to Siakam's established history of being a winning, positive value player, presenting the statistics that suggested he was doing his part and then some, the fact that the team was losing games was enough for people to discount him. Now that the season is winding down, Siakam has obliterated the early season loser narrative by being one of the best players in the league. The only narrative remaining is the bubble. Siakam's disastrous performance in the NBA's playoff bubble 2 seasons ago is still fresh in the minds of some people, who believe that he's a playoff choker. Despite his excellent play in Toronto's championship run, there are still lingering questions about whether he can get it done in the playoffs, under the microscope as the #1 guy. This season will be a yardstick many people will use to evaluate him as a player, and the question is, will he measure up? And that's this week's episode. Where do you believe the Raptors will finish? Who do you think that the Raptors will face in the first round? Will Siakam prove the doubters wrong in this year's playoffs? Let me know here in the comments section, and also on Twitter, where you can reach me at Raptors Report. Please like the video and subscribe if you enjoyed the content, as that helps the channel grow. And as always, thanks for tuning in to Raptors Report, your source for in-depth Raptors content.